All right, everybody. Well, we will go ahead and get started here. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit through a webinar. I know it's not always the most fun thing, but I think that we've got a lot of really cool topics to talk about. So again, just thanks for taking 35, 45 minutes out of your day to talk about all things video. My name is Joe Jose. I'm a vice president at AdTaxi, vice president of business development. And I've had an opportunity to speak with plenty of direct businesses, agencies, et cetera, across the country. And everybody's asking about, connected TV and what are some of the capabilities that go with that. So we felt like this was a good opportunity to bring this to the market and as well talk about a few other really cool things that not only is happening within connected TV, but YouTube as well. So that's kind of the crux for where we're coming from today. As far as the agenda, we have quite a bit to talk about. So I will first be discussing cord cutters and cord nevers. I think we hear about these people and we talk about them and understand kind of who they are, but we don't necessarily know what are their demographics, what are their behaviors. So I think we're gonna spend some time really kind of diving into who are cord cutters and cord nevers. Then we'll spend some time looking at video trends, both in terms of how people are using and digesting video, but also how the advertising industry is spending with regards to video. And then we'll spend the majority of our conversation today really focus on kind of the dual purposes of video for today's discussion. The first part would be video to drive awareness, and that's where connected TV and advanced TV will really start to come into play, highlighting the differences between digital video and broadcast TV. And then the second piece of that, which would be video to drive intent. So some lower funnel activity, video to drive conversions, et cetera, which is I think where YouTube and some of its new targeting capabilities come into play. Then after that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So just jumping right in, first I want to roll back the clock a little bit and look at a different industry, but seeing some very interesting similarities. So while these days the term cord cutter generally refers to people who are moving away from traditional pay subscription TV, it's important to remember that this term actually originated in telecom. So in the mid 2000s, with the rise of mobile phones, households began seeing the landline telephone as unnecessary. And eventually they cut the cord, moving to an entirely mobile household. So if you look at this chart, you can see back in 2004, thereabouts, nearly all homes had a landline telephone. But if you fast forward just 10 years, to the year 2014 or so, you'll see that there's an inflection point that occurred. And leading up to that, the decline of the landline had been steady. But often what you see right now in 2017, 2018, more homes have no landline at all and are moving to mobile-only households. I think what's also interesting is that telecom statistics are often propped up by the fact that office environments or office settings actually still have very widespread use of landline telephones. So what you could see is that had the office settings actually adopted kind of similar trends, the statistics that you see here could actually, in fact, be accelerated. Now, I call this out simply because this is the reality of the TV industry right now, right? This is the template that we're seeing. These declines and these inclines between kind of traditional TV and cord cutters is very similar to what we see in the landline telephone. So I just want to make sure that we're having a good visual and setting ourselves up with a good kind of foundation for today's conversation. So looking at the TV industry then, we're right around the year of 2010 when compared to that landline telephone decline. So this year, in the year 2018, nearly 68 million people will have either cut the cord or be a cord never. So that's a cumulative statistic right there, resulting in about 27% of all US adults. By 2022, so the right side of your chart, just 4 years from now, 95 million will either be cord cutters or cord nevers, which represents about 35% of all US adults. The industry itself believes that by the year 2030, more than 50% of US households will be cord cutters or cord nevers. So essentially it will be that inflection point that we were talking about. But given the acceleration that we see with certain statistics and trends, that inflection point could actually happen well before the 2030 forecast. Now, there's many similarities between cord cutters and cord nevers, but I also think there's quite a few differences which are important to call out. And in no specific order here, the first thing I do want to call out is that YouTube actually features very highly in the preferred streaming services for both groups. I think YouTube's reach should never be understated. It's the second largest search engine in the world, second only to Google. And of course, Google owns YouTube. So there's a lot of synergy that happens between those two platforms. But that's also the reason why I'm going to be sharing a lot of YouTube's newest features with you later in today's conversation or in today's webinar. But beyond that, notice how cord cutters and cord nevers actually diverge in the type of content that they view, right? So PBS, Disney, A&E for cord cutters, which is kind of that longer format video or longer format content, whereas cord nevers are looking at Vivo, BBC News, etc., more of short format types of video. And the reason I call this out is because connected TV and addressable TV can really speak to those longer or shorter formats of video. And so when I talk about putting together kind of a plan that speaks to these sets, these two groups of people, it's going to make sure it's going to include both that connected TV as well as that addressable TV. And again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But lastly, the thing that I want to call out is the average household income. You know, at $41,000 or $52,000 respectively, you might think that, you know, that's not obviously the C-level executives who are pulling in $150,000 or $200,000, but also note the average ages for these two groups as well, right? So these are the cord nevers, they have an average age of 34, cord cutters, they have an average age of 42. And these are, you know, the young families and the future families in the United States. I think it's safe to say that this is the current and the future workforce of America, and these household incomes will only grow over time. So that to me, you know, kind of highlights the importance of jumping on the connected TV trend ASAP, essentially. At AdTaxi, we tend to think about the metric of lifetime value for our customers. So just like a lifetime value for you if you're an automotive client or an education client or home improvement client, and the importance of that repeat business from that customer, similarly, we have an opportunity to kind of get entrenched and build that brand familiarity with a very nascent group that's only going to grow over time. And the last thing I just want to call out is just the definitions of cord cutter and cord never. A cord cutter is referred to as anybody that has cut the cord or gone and removed their traditional pay TV subscription in the past year, whereas a cord never is identified as a person that has never had that traditional pay TV subscription, or for statistics purposes, has not had one in the past 5 years. So that's why there's kind of the clear differentiation between those two groups. Now, let's also dig into, you know, how video is being used and consumed in the marketplace. And I think there's some really interesting things here. The first is that 85% of the US internet audience watches videos online, and half of them, half of the US consumers are actually subscribing to paid streaming video in addition, or, you know, without, in addition to a pay TV subscription, or of course by being a cord cutter or cord never. So half the US consumers are subscribing to paid TV video, or paid streaming video, which can be a supplement to those services. So they might be buying Netflix, they may be buying HBO Go as a standalone, they could be buying, you know, other things like Crackle or other types of platforms that exist. But again, it's just interesting that they're supplementing their traditional broadcast TV or their traditional cable TV packages. Second, that more video content is uploaded in 30 days online than the US TV networks have created in 30 years, which to me is kind of an astronomical figure. Further supported by the next statistic, which is that more than 500 million hours of videos are watched on YouTube every single day. So clearly, I think we can all understand that, or all have a moment or a story when we've, you know, been on YouTube and had that slippery slope, and all of a sudden you look at your clock and it's 2 hours later and you've just been looking at YouTube videos the whole time. But clearly you can see that it's not just you, it's everybody out there, right? So really neat statistics that surround the kind of the usage of video. But this last one to me is the most important, because I think it's the largest takeaway for all of us, you know, on today's webinar, and that's that marketers who use video grow revenue 49% faster than non-video users. And to me, that's important because I think everybody's so quick to kind of almost dismiss video as simply an awareness vehicle that doesn't drive conversions and doesn't really have a tangible effect on revenue or bottom line revenue to your business. And oftentimes I'll be sitting across from clients who are either hesitant or reluctant to develop video assets because they don't see the benefit of it. And I think this last statistic showcases that, you know, given that there is that, you know, stigma perhaps that surrounds it, clearly the proof is in the pudding, right? The results showcase that people are growing revenue 49 or, you know, almost 50% faster than people who are not using video. So for me, that's a very powerful statistic. Now, we've dug into cord cutters and nevers and kind of their profiles. We've identified, you know, the different kind of astronomical usage patterns in the market, but I also think it's important to take a look at our industry, right? So just over a year ago, eMarketer distributed their forecasts of digital video ad spending, and that's evident in the purple line at the bottom here. But just within 7 months of that original forecast, they decided to revise their forecast because the trends were so accelerated that they were no longer held up. And so essentially that's highlighted by, this reforecast is highlighted by a $4.7 billion increase by the year 2021. Even this year, there's going to be, you know, just over $2 billion delta between the original forecast, and that trend obviously widens as the years go on. So, you know, if it's talking about the usage patterns or how people are cutting the cord or becoming cord nevers, if it's talking about how, you know, people are digesting video, spending hundreds of hours, you know, watching it themselves, I think the theme has to be so far that acceleration, right? And as advertisers and business owners, I think it's our job to keep up with the market and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, either on behalf of our clients or on behalf of ourselves as business owners. So let's jump right in then kind of to the meat of today's conversation. I think it's really highlighting kind of the dual purposes of video. And what I mean by that is I think that there's the top line awareness, right? Video to drive awareness, or be that awareness vehicle, which is, you know, I think everybody's been groomed to think of that as kind of your pre-roll video, et cetera. But these days, I think really takes on a new complexion with connected TV and addressable TV, and some really interesting technical capabilities behind the scenes, such as view-through capabilities or cross-device attribution, that gives us a little bit more, well, actually quite a bit more insight than a traditional TV program can do. And then the second piece of that is video to drive intent. And again, I think most people put themselves in that camp of thinking about video as driving awareness, but how can we utilize video to drive intent? I think YouTube is a great tool. Of course, it spans the entire funnel, but there's some really interesting things that it can do in terms of audience identification, as well as some kind of ad extensions and whatnot that allow us to develop some really neat cross-platform metrics and analysis to really drive conversions from that platform. So that's where I'm going to spend most of today's conversations, talking kind of about that upper awareness vehicle with connected TV and that lower funnel intent behavior that is really kind of grounded in YouTube. So let's jump right in to the TV side of things. And I think the first thing that I want to get across is that people are utilizing or using the terms connected TV, addressable TV, advanced TV very loose, I'd say. And so just to kind of reframe that conversation, any format of digital video or digital television watching is the umbrella term for that is advanced TV, right? So this contains and is inclusive of connected TV, addressable TV, linear TV, smart TV, all these different kinds of things. So advanced TV is you know, watching digital TV content online, essentially. Now, when we break it down even further, I just want to make sure that people understand that there's even a little bit of a further hierarchy here. So connected TV refers to that same type of TV viewing experience that you're used to, right? You're watching the big screen, your 65-inch TV in your basement or your living or family room or something like that. So you're watching it on that TV, right? It's the same type of experience. That's connected TV. Addressable TV, however, is watching TV content or TV programming on your connected devices. So that's going to be like your laptops, your iPads, your tablets, your smartphones, etc. So it's watching TV programming just on your different devices. Connected TV, it's the same TV experience that we're used to. Now, even further still, right? I think what you'll notice in these slides here is that there's kind of a hierarchy of how all this content is delivered. On one hand, you have ad-supported content, and on the other hand, you have no ads. So ad-supported content, it may have a minimal subscription fee, but at the end of the day, these companies are subsidizing the revenue that they bring in by basically allowing ads on their site or allowing ads on their platform, for which we as users then have to, you know, sit through. Oftentimes it's, you know, only 1 or 2 ad positions, but again, what you see on the left, whether it be YouTube Red, PlayStation Vue, a section of Hulu's paid programming, it allows for ads. The other side of it doesn't have ads. This is going to be your premium subscriptions. Hulu does have a premium subscription that you can pay for. It's increased. It's an increased monthly subscription over its standard platform, which does not have ads. HBO Go, HBO Now, Showtime, Amazon Prime, Netflix, all of these, they are those premium subscription platforms, and they do not offer advertising. And so as a result, we as advertisers can only focus on those which do allow ads. Now, whether we're talking about an Apple TV or a Chromecast, those are referred to as OTT devices, so over-the-top boxes, basically. And they allow for a couple different things, right? First of all, they can allow for the availability of premium distributors. What I mean by this is these are companies that have created kind of a light version or an a la carte version or like a dumbed down version of the services that are offered through kind of traditional cable packages or standard broadcast TV packages. So YouTube, right? YouTube Red or Sling TV or Direct TV. These might have, like I said, kind of 35 to 40 different channels offered at a lower price point. Or Direct TV Now might be the digital counterpoint or the digital solution for people that are choosing not to get Direct TV themselves. So what I mean by this then is that these companies are actually aggregating the networks and the different inventory that are available so that all ads can be funneled into those platforms, right? The second side of this is that there are direct network apps themselves. So like CBS All Access, Discovery Channel, Nat Geo. Whether you have an Apple TV or you're watching on your smartphone or whatever it might be, you can download specific apps in which you can watch their content as well. And what I mean by this is, I am a cord cutter myself, but I have the ability to watch, say, ESPN through the Watch ESPN app on my Apple TV, which would be the second side, right, the direct network side, or I could open up my Sling TV app, and within Sling TV, I could watch ESPN as well. And that would just be an aggregation of, call it 30 to 35 other different quote unquote channels that are available in that package as well. But at the end of the day, while you can watch content or buy content in either of these two settings, I think I want to just make sure that I'm resetting the table here, that it's not about buying channels, right? It's not about buying only Nat Geo or only ESPN. Instead, it's about targeting the audience. And that's kind of the beauty of digital here, because in broadcast TV, you have to buy off of ratings, you have to buy off of indexes, and where does your target audience over index? And so then you buy the show that indexes for that time slot, and you just cross your fingers and hope that your audience is in fact there and that they're paying attention during those commercials. With advanced TV, we have the ability to target the audience, right? So 25 to 34-year-old male living in Minneapolis who's interested in golf and likes the St. Louis Cardinals, I can be targeted across any of the channels that I watch, across any of the content that I watch, across whether it be premium distributors or content owners. And that, I think, is the real benefit of digital, because of that hyper targeting capability, which is simply not available through traditional TV. And the reason I think that this is important is because you start to see improved metrics across brand recall, message recall, likability. And again, I think that that's because rather than being targeted en masse, people are being targeted based off of the characteristics that are important to them. So one quick example I just want to give here is, I love the show The Price is Right, but anytime I watch The Price is Right, every single advertisement that I see is for prescription medicines or medicine in general, stuff that is just completely irrelevant to me. But it doesn't stop me from watching the show. So had you been watching, or had we been watching through a connected or an advanced TV setting, instead of receiving advertisements around prescription medicines, instead I could be receiving advertisements around golf or the St. Louis Cardinals tickets, or other things that appeal to me as a consumer. Now, that's all really predicated on the type of targeting that we can do, right? And so obviously I talked about targeting being a very important part of any type of advanced TV setting. But here's kind of a quick roadmap of all the different types of targeting that we can do. And what you might notice is that this isn't different at all from anything that we can do with our other digital platforms, right? So this type of targeting mirrors what we can do in social, it mirrors what we can do programmatically, and it mirrors what we can do across pre-roll as well. So the first thing that you see here is first-party targeting. First-party targeting, it's your holy grail. So the ability to target off of your cookie activity on your website, customer sold list, past purchaser list, point of sale content, your CRM data, anything like that. We can funnel those into our advanced TV or connected TV campaigns, and we're able to target directly off of that, making a really cool line of communication on the big screen TV to your current customers or people who have already interacted with you. Then, of course, there's lookalike modeling, which is the ability to add kind of a ripple effect or a halo effect to your first party data. Take that purchaser list, take that CRM data that you have, and let's try to find more people who look like that audience, essentially giving you concentric layers of effectiveness for that data. Then there's third-party data targeting, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, but that's the ability to target based off of traits or behaviors, age, income, those kinds of things. The ability to retarget across all devices. So we can deliver video not only across connected and addressable TV, but we can use those same assets to nurture the story and build the audience across their mobile devices, across their laptops, across their their desktop computers, their iPads, etc. So really, really cool tool to be able to retarget beyond just what you see on the big screen or the TV in your living room. And then lastly, of course, is the ability to geo-target, which I think is mostly self-explanatory. Now, most people that I sit across from, they always kind of ask, what's the ideal length, or what are the types of videos that we should be building? And as far as the length goes, I think the biggest takeaway is that it should be under 30 seconds. That's when a lot of, that's when YouTube requires you to pay for an ad. That's when people start to lose kind of attention beyond that time frame. So I think the hard and fast rule is to keep it under 30 seconds. And the best responses seem to be found during that 15-second window as well. So take that for what it's worth, but certainly keep it less than 30 seconds. Now, here's in terms of highlighting all the differences between digital video or advanced TV and what we see with broadcast or traditional TV. I think what you start to see is that it's still digital video, advanced TV. It still has TV's impact. It still delivers on sight, sound, motion, and emotion, right? It's still very familiar in terms of how we watch, but it also provides that precision that digital can bring to the table. So the first is reaching consumers beyond traditional TV. We've already looked at the statistics for cord cutters and cord nevers and those trends and in terms of how they're accelerating. So it's a great supplement, if not only to add to your TV budget or to supplement what you're doing within traditional TV, but I would also be considering taking budget from those channels or those platforms and moving them into digital, again, because of how those audiences are growing right now. The second is message device and time optimization. So the ability to optimize in real time off of actual performance. And what we see in our reporting is the ability to find what devices, right? Is it an Apple TV, or is it a Amazon Fire Stick, or is it Google Chromecast, or whatever it might be. Let's find the devices that are delivering the best performance across our ad. Let's find the times of day, the days of the week, the weeks of the month, right? Those are all things that we can utilize to analyze the performance of your campaign. Third, building immersive and creative experiences. And I think that digital video allows us the opportunity to sequence our messaging as well as storytell. And so what I mean by that is, if we are, rather than just rotating creatives or having only one creative that we use, instead what we can do with digital is understand that when a person has seen a video and gone onto your site, that person can be segmented into a group, like an engaged visitor, if we call it. And once they have now become an engaged visitor on your site, then we can deliver a different type of video asset to them, whether that be through connected TV or other channels. And that might prompt them to come back to your website and take an even further action, perhaps filling out a form fill or looking at the location pages or something like that. And what we're doing is we're identifying different buckets or different segments of this audience as they engage further on your site to the point of conversion. And that's where we can make really good use of storytelling with the different video assets. So take advantage of that digital segmentation and make sure that we're delivering a great story that doesn't have, call it that banner blindness or that message blindness, and where our eyes gloss over because we've seen the ad 10, 15, 20 times, whatever it might be. It's 100% viewable, and it has 90% plus completion rates. The only way to turn off, if you will, or stop short a connected TV ad is essentially to turn off the device itself. So it's non-skippable inventory, and as a result of that, plus the fact that it has only one or two ad positions typically, oftentimes people are staying put, they're watching the ads or they're forced to watch the ads which I think is good in the eyes of an advertiser, rather than the alternative being people, can fast forward through them if they DVR'd it, or they can stand up and walk away because, there's 4 minutes or 5 minutes of advertisements in between content on, traditional TV. The fifth is that the premium brand safe environment. Basically all types of fraud prevention, brand, safety, contextual placement, etc., is layered into that is layered into all of our digital campaigns, is of course layered into advanced TV as well. So there's really no difference there from any standard digital campaign that you see. And then lastly, that it's measurable. And I think that this, I've hinted at it obviously, but this I think is the most important takeaway from advanced TV, especially as it relates to broadcast television. And to understand how we can measure, I think it's first important to understand the power of view-through technology as well as cross-device attribution. So we're all familiar with clicks and click-through rate, I think, but the fact is that the average person receives about 1,700 banners per month. But what's interesting is that 8% of users, so 8% of all online users, accounts for 85% of all the clicks that take place on ads. And so what happens is if we start to optimize off of click or click-through rate, it means that we're optimizing to a significant minority, or really optimizing to that 8% of users who are clicking. So how do we take advantage of 100% of people that are exposed to the ad? And that actually is where view-through comes in. View-through technology is similar to click-through in that once a person has, a person is served an ad, right? And then they obviously view it, but let's say they don't click on it at that time. Instead, they might open that browser, 1 minute later. They may open a new browser a minute later. They might have a break at work in a few hours. They might go home and talk to their spouse. And at that time, right? So that could be an hour, a few hours, a day, a couple days, whatever it might be later, they go to the website. That is resulting in a view through. And so it kind of takes the same complexion of a billboard on the side of the road, right? So you might be driving along driving along to work or something like that. You see a billboard, but rather than pulling out your cell phone or your mobile phone at that time and calling the number on the spot, I think that's a pretty big rarity. Instead, what might happen is, again, you get to work, or you're on your lunch break, or you go home from work, something like that. That's when you might pick up the phone and call that, assuming that that was a business that you were interested in. That's the same type of logic as a view through. And so now that we understand what a view through is, I think it's also important to understand how cross-device attribution works. And cross-device attribution is essentially, if you think about your connected TV, in my experience, in my world, I have an Apple TV at home. I have a Apple, iPhone. I have an iPad. I have a MacBook, etc. So on all of these devices, I'm logged in using my Apple ID. I'm also logged in using my credentials into Safari and different web browsers and whatnot. So what happens is, if I'm seeing an ad on the 70-inch TV in my basement, and I'm signed into all of these different devices, what happens is, if I go into my laptop or if I go into my smartphone and I end up visiting that website for the ad that I had seen, essentially the cookie that was placed onto my connected TV is able to be kind of transferred through all the different connected devices that I have, again, because I'm signed in using the same credentials to all of them. And when I visit the website, utilizing my laptop or my smartphone, the connected TV advertisement will get the credit, or will get the attribution for that. So because we're able to layer in view through technology, and because we're able to layer in cross-device attribution, it gives us a really holistic story about the power and the credibility of our connected TV or our addressable TV advertisements, and the actions that are taken on the other side. So hopefully that makes sense. But what I do want to take a quick second to do is showcase what some of this reporting can look like. And I'm only going to fly through this, but I do want to make sure that we understand the types of things that can be reported out on, because I think it's different from what we're used to seeing with traditional TV. So obviously you have kind of your top line summary, the different types of conversions, the cost per completion, all these different types of things. But I also want to showcase that we're able to drill out the gender, the number of impressions or video impressions that were served to male or female, the different age groups that watched or were exposed to our ads, our video ads, the income, the net worth that people were, that our target audiences had. And then you can start to see which of these audiences actually perform better in terms of the number of impressions that received or their number of completions that they had. Again, further, you can see the differences by city. And then we have the ability to report on, was the video or was the ad shown, and viewed through 25% completion, 50% completion, 75% completion, all the way through to 100% completed, right? So just looking at this, you can start to see, how this can be really interesting for us. And for me, coming from kind of an analytical background, I believe that any opportunity to look at analysis, right? Look at actual hard data is an opportunity to improve the performance of a campaign. Everything can always be optimized. So if we're noticing that certain times of the day, days of the week, devices, times, et cetera, are delivering better completions or delivering better quality audiences, to me, that's more of an opportunity to improve the performance of the campaign. And here, of course, and I think this might be, some of the most interesting stuff is conversions, right? So website visits by city, by day of week, by time of day, by device, et cetera. I think that this is where we're going to see some of the really cool implementation of advanced TV on behalf of our partners. So just want to provide that quick little snippet of, what reporting can look like. Keep in mind that's not necessarily the exact reporting that you would get, right, in terms of the look and feel, but those are all the different things that we can 100% report out on. So whatever makes sense that you want to look at or how we want to optimize, again, all of those topics can be included. So here's where we start to switch gears a little bit. Obviously, we talked about video to drive awareness, so really focusing on the top of the funnel. And you can see how connected TV, addressable TV, but that umbrella term, right, advanced TV, can do a great job of driving that awareness and consideration. You can see how they do a good job of exposing us as consumers to, educational videos, product videos, those kinds of things. But the other side of the coin is that there are products and videos out there that also span the entire funnel. And I think that that's where YouTube really comes into play. YouTube can serve as an awareness vehicle, but it also has some really cool tactics to drive bottom of the funnel activity. So that coupled with the type of messaging that can be done, I think you start to get a good idea of exactly how we can utilize video to span, both the top and the bottom with the goal of driving conversions. So let's dig into YouTube a little bit. I think first and foremost, the thing to call out is that YouTube has a viewership to find customers at scale, right? YouTube, like I mentioned earlier, it's the second largest search engine, second only to Google. And of course, Google owns it. So really cool cross, collaboration that can happen between those two platforms. But YouTube itself has 1.5 billion global monthly viewers who are watching an hour per day on mobile devices alone. So start layering in, laptops and other connected devices, and those numbers obviously grow. But just mobile activity across the globe, that's huge penetration into the global market. But then beyond that, YouTube has the precision to target those high intent audiences and not just everybody. So what do I mean by that? The first thing to call out is that obviously I think people have been kind of aware of how YouTube targeting works. Obviously we could target on keywords, you could target on certain behavioral patterns and whatnot. You could target on certain categories, et cetera, but Google has really doubled down in the type of data that they've used to leverage in order to develop even more precise targeting. And what they did is they created what are called intent signals. What I mean by this is that as a person searches on Google, or as they're looking across in the search bar in YouTube, as they're putting in locations on Google Maps or looking at and downloading apps in the Google Play App Store, et cetera, just basically making use of Google's suite, the G Suite of products, they're able to kind of aggregate that metadata to really put together in different audience profiles, right, that signal intent. And what I mean by this is, let's say a person is looking to buy a new house, right? What they're going to be doing is they'll be obviously searching in Google different neighborhoods, different types of homes, different types of features that are important, different schools, et cetera, that are going to be important for them and their families, their kids, et cetera. They'll also probably go to the App Store and download things like Zillow or Redfin, basically real estate apps. They might be going, putting in Google Maps to home development centers or something like that. So basically, what Google is able to do is identify that because of the search patterns, the download of the apps and whatnot, they're able to show with strong authority that this person is likely a home buying intender. And it's that type of aggregation of data to deliver that signal of intent, which is, I think, where YouTube's taking their targeting kind of to the next level. And it's by using these intent signals that they're able to build out kind of 3 new different targeting platforms. So the first is affinity. And affinity is mostly Google's equivalent of behavioral targeting. But because of this new aggregation of intent signals utilizing the G Suite products that I just kind of walked through, they're able to provide even further reach and improvement on performance because of that hyper, precise targeting. The second, then, which is in fact brand new, is life event targeting. So this is essentially reaching people during major life milestones. So that could be like getting married, moving, graduating from college, those kinds of things. And what's interesting is that because these moments are so kind of life-changing, they often have a very long lead time. What I mean by that is, let's say a person is getting ready to get married. Oftentimes they're going to be, making their profile on the knot.com or similar websites. They'll be kind of researching different vendors, and they'll start to be, if anyone's been married and or had a kid or something like that, obviously you get retargeted, a million times off of those types of ads. But because of the lead time that's taking place, Google is able to target those life events 3 months prior to the event, as well as 3 months after that event. And that can be really interesting and useful information for us on the phone here, because we can be creative with that type of lead time or that type of trajectory. So using the example again of getting married, that could be a great opportunity for those 3 months prior to the wedding for vendors, right? This could be caterers, this could be flowers, this could be venues. Although some of one or some of those things might be vetted and finalized months in advance, but there's always going to be different businesses that can take advantage of kind of those 3 months prior to a wedding. On the flip side of it, there could be on the back end of getting married, or the 3 months after, we could be taking advantage of it for looking at new homes, or people or advertising to this newly married couple, or the life event of getting married, for utility companies, home inspections, those kinds of things, right? So essentially where I'm going with this is that this event doesn't have to necessarily be tied to the event itself, right? So it doesn't have to be just only things relating to marriage, but rather the businesses that can take advantage and that can utilize that audience that's getting married or moving or graduating or whatever it might be on both sides, whether it be preceding or after the event takes place. The third piece is then consumer patterns. So it kind of follows similar logic as life events, but instead this is kind of those frequent or habitual patterns that are taking place in our everyday lives. So the grocery stores that we go to, the Targets, down the street, the different big box retailers, et cetera, different restaurants. It's a great opportunity to take advantage of promotional activity, deliver a promo, try to increase the cross-sell or the upsell capabilities, increase your average cart size, et cetera. So here you can see how consumer patterns based off of people's everyday lives can also be a very useful targeting tactic. So just looking at how the performance has gone for each of these things, let's just look at two examples. The first is Sonos, right? So they use life events targeting to sell home audience systems to people that were moving. And as a result of that, again, remember, you can pay attention to the 3 months before, the 3 months after. And what they found is that there was a 37% lift in intent, purchase intent, coming after that advertising, as well as a 425% lift in the branded searches. And I think that does a good job, especially, branded searches does a good job of showcasing that, because we could evaluate how much people searched for Sonos prior to the campaign starting. And now we can look at percentage of people searching for Sonos after the campaign has started. And what you see is that lift, right? And that's a great indicator of conversion and transactionable ROI coming out of a campaign like that. And then of course there's Jimmy Dean, which use consumer patterns targeting to reach people who frequently visited bought breakfast at restaurants. This could be people going to Dunkin' Donuts, Caribou, Starbucks, etc. And what they found, and what they're trying to do is get people to buy their products in stores and forego the the $5 latte that you get in Starbucks. And so what they found is there was an 18% lift in purchase intent and also a 425% lift in branded searches. So I think really cool showcase of the type of lift that you get coming out of these really interesting new tactics that Google has brought. Now, within YouTube, I think we're probably all familiar with the ad formats that are available, but just a quick refresh, there's the TrueView ads, which are those longer format, anywhere from 15 to 30-second ads, which are skippable after a certain, after about 6 seconds or so. And these are, you only pay for them, right? Or you're only charged essentially when a person is watched to the end of the ad or to 30 seconds, whichever of those comes first, right? That's a TrueView ad. But then there's, of course, the 6-second bumper ads. And these are kind of those short, more snackable ad sizes. They're great for kind of reach and frequency or driving a message repeatedly. And these are, of course, non-skippable inventory. So what we find is it's a great idea to kind of blend those two types of messages together. And again, I've referenced the terminology sequencing a little bit before, but why not, do something what we see right here as part of our cadence of events for delivering video messages across YouTube. Start off with a 30-second TrueView spot. Of course, it can be skippable, but we're only going to be paying attention to those qualified audiences or the people that have watched through to completion. Once they've watched through to completion, now we can start to deliver them kind of those 6-second bumper ads, just staying top of mind, delivering that frequency to make sure that people don't forget about the brand. And of course, we can make use of different formats of these 6-second bumper ads. So have 1 or 2 of them that we can rotate to make sure that we're never developing that blindness or that message dilution that comes with having seen the same ads over and over again. So here you have kind of a pretty rudimentary, but still very good plan in terms of making use of the products and platforms that YouTube has, as well as making sure that we're segmenting the audience and sequencing that story as best we can. Now we're getting pretty close to the bottom here. The last things I want to really call out are the different types of bottom of the funnel conversion tactics that YouTube has available to it. So just like pay-per-click ads or SEM, which I think we're all mostly familiar with in Google, now YouTube has very similar capabilities. So in the left-hand side, you can see kind of that TrueView for action spot, right? So this makes use of that 30-second TrueView ad, that skippable ad, but it also has a call to action banner. And those call to actions can be things like you see here, get a quote, buy now, learn more, essentially reducing that click path, the number of clicks that it takes to get off of YouTube and to the get a quote or to the buy now page of the advertiser's website. Then of course there's YouTube for shopping, which is tied to a shopping feed. And what you can see here, it's a little bit small, but what you can see here is that underneath this video ad, which is a 6-second skippable ad, but it's also tied to our shopping feed and has product listing ads underneath. So here you see kind of it looks like a conditioner or a soap for $18, as well as some other products that have drop downs for shopping. Again, very similar to the shopping environment that you see within Google Shopping ads or product listing ads, etc. And then lastly, here you have those location extensions. So what you see here is once this advertisement is played, it drops down and it shows the map, which is an opportunity to tap to map or tap for directions, etc. Again, reducing that time that it takes to go from off of YouTube and into a call to action or into the website that allows us to get to that store location. So just like Google, pay-per-click or SEM, what we're doing here, what YouTube is doing is providing more options, providing a less of a barrier to entry, if you will, to moving and taking action and converting on a client's website. And so it's really cool to be able to see that, obviously here video, which spans the entire funnel, now YouTube is taking it a step farther and trying to take those intent signals, take advantage of people who are ready to purchase and give them the opportunity to convert on your site, all within kind of the YouTube ecosystem. So really cool capabilities there. And, this is, we're almost done. The last thing that I would call out is that we're all familiar with how search can kind of funnel our YouTube campaigns, right? So I'm sure there's plenty of people on the phone who have taken their keyword list within their search campaign. And of course, then they use that as a keyword list or a targeting list for serving their videos up on YouTube. But that actually serves as a two-way street, right? So now it doesn't have to go only from search to YouTube. It can also go from YouTube to search, which is, I think, really important because, again, it's all about driving that conversion, right? And the way that this works is essentially find people who have recently viewed your videos. So if there's 1,000 people that have viewed your videos, we can go ahead and add them to a YouTube remarketing list. Then we take that YouTube remarketing list and we add it as more of like an ad group, essentially, to your existing search campaigns. And so from there, we're able to kind of measure that performance. We can retarget YouTube viewers on search, right? So they've already seen your ad. They are now their own ad group. And instead, we're retargeting text ads within search to these people who have already, of course, like I said, viewed your ads, and then start to report on how that ad group is working. Are they performing better or indexing higher than kind of the rest of your ad groups? Are they showcasing, the kind of the standard, are they exhibiting the characteristics that we see with many of our platforms, where exposure to 2 or 3 different platforms oftentimes sees brand lift? I think that that's where the reporting and the ability to make Google and YouTube that two-way street becomes a really powerful tool, especially with regards to conversion for video platforms. Now, obviously, we've talked about a wide variety of things. We talked about cord cutters, we talked about and cord nevers. We talked about all the different usage patterns, whether it be in our industry or how people are digesting information. We've talked about how video drives awareness as well as intent, calling out kind of the key features in terms of how you can track and connected TV, as well as how we can drive conversions within YouTube. So why now, right? I think obviously all those trends, we talked about, they're accelerating, they're beating their forecasts, et cetera. But kind of more basically, I think it boils down to 3 main things. One is costs. It's only becoming a more competitive landscape, and the price for video production and creative is only getting lower these days. It's only getting more bite-sized. So as a result, I think costs are making this a much more realistic opportunity for people. Furthermore, it costs significantly less to run digital video or advanced TV, if you will, than it does on traditional TV programming. So I think there's definitely a consideration there as well. The second then is targeting and reporting. So targeting on the front end, being able to make use of first-party, lookalike targeting, third-party targeting, retargeting across all different devices. I think that's obviously kind of a no-brainer in terms of how much more direct targeting can be versus traditional and broadcast TV. And then reporting. Obviously, we looked at those reports, the ability to showcase reporting and analysis on time of day, day of week, device, as well as the website visits, the conversions that are taking place after exposure to those ads as well. I think that's where you start to see really big differences between traditional as well as digital, or traditional and digital. And then lastly, it would be the integration with other digital products. Omni-channel is, I think, probably discussed almost ad nauseum these days. And the reason that it's happening is because it's such a unique vehicle. It's such a great way of nurturing an audience, building brand familiarity across multiple different platforms, utilizing message kind of consistency across all of those. So the fact that whether it be YouTube or connected TV or addressable TV, that it can harmoniously integrate with search as well as social campaigns, as well as pre-roll video, as well as programmatic display, all of this, I think that makes it a very cohesive strategy for anybody who owns a business, or for anybody who's at an agency, managing the business for their clients. So with that, we covered a lot of different things today. I just want to say again, thank you for your time. I think we came in at just under an hour for today's presentation. So please, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, or you can reach out to your local ad taxi rep, and we'd be happy to take care of you, and of course provide you any additional collateral as it pertains to connected TV, YouTube, or any of these other statistics. So with that, I just want to say thank you,